Now, once upon a time, Yamaha made a sports tourer. First there was the FJ 1100, that was in around about 1985. Then came the FJ 1200, and then came the hub centre steered GTS 1000. But since 1996, they haven't really had anything in this class. Until now, that is. But this isn't a Blackbird ZZR type sports tourer, this is Yamaha's version, more of a touring sports. It's the FJR 1300. In fact, Yamaha themselves class the FJR as a performance tourer, and I can see what they mean. Not performance as in R1, but a comfortable long-distance machine, but with a sharpness missing in big tourers and often compromised in sports tourers. So how have they done it? Well, first up, it's got a brand new engine, 1300cc. It uses a lot of the technology of the R1, but it is a new engine. It's got twin balancer shafts, one behind, one in front, and it's also cast the block, integral with the crankcase, makes for a very rigid engine and saves a bit of weight. Now that rigid engine allows Yamaha to use it as actually part of the frame structure. So if you see this perimeter beam frame, well, that's what it looks like at first glance here, but it's cast aluminium right around there, comes down there. The engine just sort of hangs from it in free space, bolted down at the bottom there. But it makes for a rigid package, and as I said, saves a bit of weight. Up the front end here, on the front forks, just look at the size of these stanchions. 48mm stanchions, pretty hefty. I think it's the same as the Thunder Ace, but they're probably different forks because it's a heavier bike. And perhaps one of the most distinctive things, but you can't see it that well, down here, the shaft drive. Now, it's not as obvious as on a BMW. They've actually slimmed it down and it actually looks like a conventional swinging arm. Until you get to the back and you get the old bevel box, of course. But that is a lightweight shaft drive unit, and it saves unsprung weight and makes for better suspension travel. Same up the front end. I should have mentioned up the front here, coming back here, you'll recognise those calipers, same as an R1. Big discs, 298mm diameter. But if you can see in these wheels, if the camera can get in, these are incredibly lightweight. Well, I haven't felt the weight, but I'm told they're very lightweight wheels, and you can see why. It's got loads of holes in, like a piece of Gorgonzola cheese. Cheesy or not, the big Yam has certainly got a lightweight feel to it. It's not actually light, of course, at 237 kilos, but it is compared to a Pan-European at 293 kilos or BMW's K12 at 260 kilos. But more than that, it feels so much more lively. The big torquey motor delivers its 145 brake horse at a lowly 8,500 revs, with its maximum torque at just 6,000 revs, so you can just leave it in top and fly by wire. Or you can play sports bikes with a clunk-free 5-speed gearbox. But don't get carried away, because if you wind it up too much, you'll hit the rev limiter, gently reminding you that revs are unnecessary on this Grand Tourer. The riding position took me some time to get used to, because it's far more upright than on my own bikes, and it has much lower pegs. But once my brain was switched over, it proved really comfortable with no aches or numb bum, even after a 180-mile non-stop run through France. And you can see why. First off, big padded seat, really comfortable, this one. And if I've got my leg over here, it's also got these big bars as well. These pull up from the top fork stanchion, and you really are not sit up and beg, but you're sitting pretty upright. But the old piece de la resistance is this screen, the Leki Screen. You've probably read all about it. If I just switch on. For tootling around town, you can keep it low like that, and on a very hot day you get plenty of fresh air. But then, depending on your mood, crank it up a little bit, and you can hear the different effect on it as it goes up. The wind noise drops on your helmet. Perhaps use it mid-position normally, but if the weather gets really foul, if it's really crappy, crank it up till it's virtually vertical. And the strange thing is, you actually get a sort of a vacuum, and you're drawn towards the screen, and so you get turbulence behind you, but you're drawn in there, you're in a little bubble. It's really pretty good. So the screen is definitely not a gimmick. And likewise, the dashboard. Very simple, but it's got a digital display here on the right. You can see the time up there. Down here, you've got 2 trip recorders. You've got your fuel gauge running down the left there, temperature in the center, all very sensible stuff and easy to read. In the middle here, you've got your speedo, which is where I think it should be on a touring bike. Still got the rev counter, but that's over to the left. And you've got a little row of idiot lights there, including an oil level warning light, which is useful. And you've got some excellent mirrors on here, some of the best mirrors I've come across. They don't vibrate and you see far more than your elbows, which is really good. And while we're up the front end, the forks are fully adjustable. You've got your compression damping, rebound damping, and also your preload. And talking about suspension, at the back here, you've got a little lever so you can adjust the preload. And because the bike's on its stand, I can actually do it. See that lever there? When you're carrying a pillion passenger, just move it over. And there we are, that's stiffened up the rear suspension. One last thing, while I'm sitting aboard, the petrol tank, steel, big one, 25 litre, and steel, ideal for that magnetic tank bag. Get it onto the twisty stuff and it really shows its sporting side. The suspension is softish, but it's not squidgy, and it turns really well. It feels more like a Ducati ST4, a Triumph Sprint or a VFR than a big tourer, so in such circumstances, that's where the sports tourer comes in. Take it into town and it's an absolute pussycat. Trickling along in 5th gear at 20 miles an hour, it proved incredibly flexible and easy to ride. So there it is. Captain's sensible touring bike 1 minute, sports bike the next. Neat if you can do it, and I think Yamaha have. For instance, it's got a 2-piece seat. Why, you might say? Here we go. There's the front part. Also got a back part here. Now I can only think that this has been designed for the utility purpose, the working bikes, you know, the police, paramedics, the AA and all those sort of people. A useful little feature, and we're probably going to see these in service use. Down there it's got a complete stainless steel exhaust system and a catalytic converter tucked away underneath. Those are all the sort of sensible sides. Another thing on the sensible side, you must have noticed these cases. Now these are an optional extra, cost you 499 quid, but there's no ugly frames on them. You just put the old key in, unlock it there, snap open the catch. There we are. Away, and off you go into your hotel, looking very smart. And it completely changes the look of the bike as well. You can see it looks far more trim and lightweight. But dead easy, with a bit of luck, I'll be able to put these back on. You just look there, down they go. Make sure that's underneath, that's it, locked up, and that's the panniers on. And of course, another favourite of Paul's and mine is a centre stand. And you need one on a touring bike. When you're loading the thing up, you're filling up your panniers, you're putting your tank bag on, what better than to have a centre stand? So what else can you have? Well, you can have heated grips, and of course you need them on a touring bike. £159 a pair. This hasn't got them, and I wish it had them first thing this morning, I can tell you that. You can also get for this what they call foot shields. I haven't actually seen them, but I guess they fit in this sort of V-shaped wedge here, click on there, just to give you some protection around your boots. But having said that, the fairing has proved really, really effective. I did get wet, horribly wet coming back from France, but nevertheless, very impressed with the fairing. The FJR comes in black, silver and deep purple metallic, and I reckon we're going to see a lot of these filling a gap in the market. It's not cheap at $9,899 on the road, but touring in the grand style never was.